Welcome to the Right Time Podcast. The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. You can send us a tweet at the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. That's at Bomani_Jones. Oh, man. I hadn't done radio in a while, right? I was doing PTI for a few days. I had a convention. Came down here to Miami, doing Highly Questionable for a little while. Been traveling, man. But before I left, the homie Kyrie was saving us with all this good content that he was providing by not wanting to go to the Cavs. And while I was gone, Kyrie didn't provide no content. And then I came back yesterday, and we were like, ooh, I sure could use some content. And Kyrie was nowhere to be found. I'm like, hey, yo, Kyrie, Tuesday coming up. What you got for me, bro? And then Woj was like, hold my 40. And he comes up and he's like, all right. And what did Woj come with us with? Okay, Woj put out the report on ESPN.com, basically that the Cleveland Cavaliers are hoping that they are going to be able to get a franchise player back in return for Kyrie Irving. That's the play that they are making, to try to get a franchise player back for Kyrie. And I got to say, getting a franchise player back in a trade for Kyrie would be pretty impressive. Why would it be pretty impressive? Because it is very, very rare that you trade a player as good as Kyrie and get back a player as good, if not better, than him. That tends not to happen very often. Now, if you do not get a player who is better than Kyrie Irving in that trade, then you are not getting a franchise player. How do I know that? Because Kyrie Irving is not a franchise player. Or at the very least, Kyrie Irving has not demonstrated to me that he is a franchise player. Now, to be fair, James Harden, when the Rockets made the trade for him, had not demonstrated himself to be a franchise player. And then very quickly, like in one game, demonstrated he was, in fact, a franchise player. But the Cavs are not going to get a franchise player in trade for Kyrie Irving. On top of that, we find out that the Cavs are operating under this idea that LeBron ain't coming back. They feel as though if LeBron does not commit to coming back, then LeBron is not coming back, and they're going to make trades, with the thought process being that LeBron is not going to come back. Right. That's the game that they are playing. Now, in just a couple of minutes, we're going to go to some sound from our good friend Brian Windhurst about this. But in the meantime, ESPN Fantasy Football Marathon is going on, so make sure you sign up and play on ESPN.com or in the ESPN Fantasy app, Android, iPhone, iPad. Play in a private league with friends or join a public league and be matched with other ESPN fans. Playing up to 25 leagues is completely free. Bow. Anyway, here's Brian Windhurst talking about what the Cavs and Kyrie and LeBron got going.
David, what we have here is a poker game. What the Cavs and LeBron and Kyrie are doing are bluffing, who's going to call, who's going to raise. It's a very intriguing situation. So what you have the Cavs essentially sending the message is, LeBron, if you will not commit to us, we will not commit to you. If you can't tell us you're going to be with us past this year, then when we make a trade, it's not going to be just for this year. Do they really want to do this? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe what they're looking for is to get LeBron to commit so that they can pick a path and they can maybe even rescue the Kyrie Irving situation. But in my discussions with sources around LeBron, he does not intend to make any commitment to anybody.
Hold on, wait a minute, bro. The Cavs think they're going to strong arm LeBron into making some level of commitment to them. Are you serious? Like, has any threat ever been more empty than the Cavs saying, we going to make trades for the future if you don't give us an answer, LeBron? Probably looking at them like, fine then, don't. What are you talking about? Right? Like, there's no way in the world that LeBron is buying that one. None whatsoever. Like, to me, this doesn't even sound to me truly like it is the Cavs and Kyrie and LeBron making moves. One, there is no move that Kyrie is able to make. Right? Like, Kyrie doesn't have it in him to make a move. He's the guy with 2 years left on his contract. He's the dude that doesn't have anywhere to go. Right? No. Kyrie, all he can do is just sit around and wait for the trade to wind up happening. Now, the Cavaliers are in an interesting place when it comes to trying to figure out what to do with trades, because there is a future that they have to prepare for without LeBron James. See, here's the thing that LeBron has going for him that gives him an uncommon level of power, especially within this situation. Kyrie is out here like, man, I sure hope they trade me to a situation that's good, right? The Cavs are like, well, we sure would like to be a contender, even if LeBron's gone. LeBron's like, I am the walking definition of contention. I show up, it's a contender, right? You drop LeBron off, put him on the New Orleans Pelicans. It's a contender. You take LeBron, drop him off in the French Quarter. Get 11 dudes. It's a contender. Take LeBron off the Cavs. It's Cleveland. That's what we got, guys. Like that. That is what we have here. I'm trying to think of how hard LeBron's laughing at the idea that the Cavs think they about to strong arm LeBron James. Where the hell we all been for the last 14 years? If the Cavs are ever in a position to try to strong arm LeBron James into something, I feel pretty confident they would have done it already. They ain't got the juice to strong arm LeBron. They don't have the power to strong arm LeBron. And on top of not having the power to strong arm LeBron, I would think that they would have the good sense to know not to strong arm LeBron. But here we are talking about Dan Gilbert and good sense. Look, bottom line is this. They are promised one last year of contention. And they are promised it because they have LeBron on the roster, and LeBron's not going to go anywhere. You are promised to be a contender this year. LeBron leaves, you will not be a contender. Now, there may be a chance that you can make a couple things happen, shuffle some things, and then you can ultimately become a contender. Now, granted, that course of becoming a contender is probably going to require you to try to find some way to convince a free agent to come to Cleveland. And the one free agent who would come to Cleveland already did it, and we didn't think he would do that either. Right. You got 1 year LeBron. Your trades need to be all in line with, let's try to get us this championship this year, because that's what we got. We don't have anything outside of this year. Cavs come to LeBron. Well, if you commit to us, maybe. Well, LeBron looking at them like, you got to be kidding me. He's like my homeboy. It was, okay. I try not to make analogies that, like, compare sports to romantic situations. I try not to. I feel like it's a little bit of a trite move that people wind up making. However, I feel like in this situation, it reminds me of this one time, right? I had this homeboy. He was dealing with somebody. She wanted more of a commitment from him, right? Common story, I know. She wanted more of a commitment from him. So he comes to town one time and hits her up and is like, hey, I'm in town. And she's like, yeah, okay, great. Maybe we can go to lunch. Because lunch in the daytime. You know what I mean? People got work to go to after. Cuts down on the complications. He was like, I ain't never laughed so hard in my life. Like, for lunch? Okay, yeah, okay, we going to lunch. And they went to lunch, and apparently they went to somewhere else, right? Why? And you know damn well that wasn't going to work, right? This idea that you going to smoke a commitment out of somebody? No, not like that, right? Like, there might be a way that you can manage to pull it off. That one isn't going to do it. That one isn't going to pull it off. You might be able to, like, detach yourself completely, but you're not about to be awesome. Yeah, we can do that. We can go to lunch. No. That sure ain't going to work with LeBron James. LeBron, like, I don't do lunch. You know damn well you ain't trying to go to lunch with me. Cavs ain't trying to go to lunch. Cavs need to go ahead and get the biggest meal they can get tonight, right? They need to play reasons and just come to terms with what the situation happens to be. But you are not going to strong arm LeBron into nothing. You ain't going to force him to say he's not committing to the Cavs, period. Well, if you tell us that you're going to, no, that's not going to happen. So now that you know that he is not going to commit, you might just be trying to make some moves that make your team as good as it can be right now. I would also make the argument that I don't see a lot of ways that they could make a trade that would make this team better for the right now that would not ultimately make the team better for the future. Right? Like, it seems like their goals kind of work together a little bit better than they're giving credit for working together right now. Cavs hustling backwards, man. Like, really, really hustling backwards. If the game plan is we are going to strong arm LeBron James. Meanwhile, Kyrie over there like, somebody trade me, please. I would kind of like to go play. They're like, not now, Kyrie. We too busy talking to LeBron. This is why I don't want to play here, no. Kyrie, hey. After we talk to LeBron, then we'll talk to you. But that's what. Yeah, I know. That's why you want to leave. But you can't leave until we figure this out with LeBron. So even as Kyrie tries to assert his independence and get out from the shadow of LeBron, they're like, yeah, cool. As soon as we figure out what we're going to do with LeBron. Yeah. And then in a couple years, he's going to be like, man, I miss the days where they used to holler at LeBron and then talk to me. Now they talk to me first, and we only won 30 games. 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. Coming up next, we got your phone calls. And also, the NBA thinks they have figured out how to get rid of stars resting with the schedule. I'll let you know if they pulled it off on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 8.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Dominique Foxworth of The Undefeated joins us next segment. Dominique Foxworth will join us at 4:30 Eastern. 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. And hey, Top Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. We're just talking about Kyrie Irving and the Cavs trying to get a franchise player in return for him in a trade. I don't think he's a franchise player. Let's hit the phones to talk to Harrison in South Carolina. Harrison, thanks for calling The Right Time.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying, like, I feel like Kyrie is a franchise player. I mean, but so is LeBron. But I mean, he's gonna need LeBron in the long run. That's why I don't feel like he should be traded, even though because he's saying like he's not a focal point. I feel like he is a focal point because if he doesn't have LeBron, or if LeBron don't have him, then he ain't gonna have nobody to pass. He's gonna have anybody to pass to him.
Yeah, thanks, Harrison, but I don't feel like that was what focal point mean. Let's hit the phone talk to Sean in Florida. Sean, thanks for calling The Right Time.
All right, Bo, thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
All right, so the issue with Kyrie going to San Antonio, they've said that that's one of the destinations he wants to go. I think that trading DeJounte Murray, which is a piece they would most likely be giving up, isn't smart because you would have to – it's committing to Kyrie over DeJounte Murray, and with Kyrie being able to opt out after this year, I think that would be an issue.
Can he opt out after this year? I thought he was in for 2.
I'm not sure. I think he hasn't opted out, but he might be in for 2. But either way, DeJounte Murray could be a two-way guard of the future over Kyrie, who might not even fit in the Spurs system in the first place.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I appreciate the call. Anyway, DJ Mike Hitman, what's going on?
Hey, Bo, let me be the GM of the Cleveland Cavaliers. They ain't got nothing to lose for, right? They know LeBron going to lead next season, and they know Kyrie ain't going to want to play for him. How about this deal? I'm trading you, whoever wants you, LeBron James, right now. I'm getting rid of you, Kyrie, and I'm going to restock my team back up. I'm going to get a number 1 pick or somebody in the second round pick or a lottery. Why they don't just trade LeBron? They know he want to be gone and let him deal with it. Once he leaves, he can go wherever he want to go.
Well, he got to know. He got to know, Mike. He got a no trade clause, man.
He got a no trade clause.
Yeah,
where did he get a no trade clause?
He got what?
He got no trade. I thought that boy was smarter than I thought he was with no hair. God, no. I didn't know he had no. Bo, you sure he got no trade clause?
I am positive.
Hey, Bo, if he got no trade clause, your boy getting married with Stacey. I'm going to head down there where you get married at October 1st. Have a good one, Bo.
All right, Mike. I love the joy that Mike had upon learning that he had a no trade clause. All right, 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. And Kyrie is an unrestricted free agent in 2020. Does not have that opt-out after that year. I kind of have some curiosity as to how it is that he doesn't have the opt-out. Like, I feel like his agent was asleep at the wheel there. But anyway, there you go. He has no opt-out. Speaking of NBA stars, they redid the NBA schedule. Basically, man, so I think it winds up going well to help the players in order to rest a little better. The schedule will not be as arduous. They're cutting down on the 4 games and 4 nights. And really, this is about the schedule, right? Like, this was basically the national television schedule. First of all, the Warriors are going to be on national TV 43 times. 43 times. They know America know what y'all want, and y'all want the Warriors. Y'all are going to be they're going to be on 43 times. But here's the big thing that they're doing is that if you play in one of them national TV games on ABC, you will not be playing the game before or the game after. Basically, what Adam Silver is saying, these cats might not play on national television, but it ain't going to be because they tired. And for that, I'm like, way to go, NBA. Like, what took you so long to figure out that this was probably your best move? Like, there is legitimacy to the idea that these cats need rest, right? There's legitimacy to the ideas that are behind the reason why they're missing those games. So the solution is make it to where they don't need rest for those games, right? So, yep. That's what they did. They went ahead and straightened that all the way out. They are doing everything they can to make sure that you watch these games that cost so much money. And I ain't talking about what costs so much money to the fans. I'm talking about to the games that cost so much money to ESPN. Like, you know what fan this sounds like the NBA was looking out for? John Skipper. That's who it sounds like they were looking out for. You could be like, oh, man, I paid all this money for my kids to watch the game. Skipper paid a lot more. Might not have been Skipper's money, but Skipper paid a lot more. Skipper like, hey, look here. I think you need to have LeBron out here. Me and my kids are going to be watching the game at home on television, as will all of our shareholders. What do you know? Problem solved. Yep, good enough for me. Right? Like, I didn't really have a problem so much with all the DNP rests. And part of it is, while I understand this is a league that is largely driven by stardom and the stars are the ones that most people tune in to watch, I'm down to watch NBA basketball, man. Like, I don't need LeBron necessarily in a game for that to be the reason that I watch it. I talk all that noise, though, but let me tell you something. LeBron ain't there. I'm probably turning the game off. I do remember this, though, and this is when I realized that people often just want something to complain about. Spurs had a game against the Heat where they pulled all their stars out, right? Like, Pop sent everybody home on a Southwest flight. And I have general problems, I admit, with the way that the Spurs handle things. Like, I feel like they milk off the publicity of the NBA, but they do not contribute at all, right? Like, they restrict everything. They be as boring as possible. They make all the money they don't put in their half. That's how I feel about it. But then Pop sent everybody home, and people are like, oh, man, we tuned in to watch the stars. I was like, you ain't tuned in to watch a Tim Duncan game one day in your life. Not once. I don't care how good Tim Duncan is. And Tim Duncan is great. Ain't been a day in your life that you were like, man, I'm here to watch Tim Duncan. No, you weren't. Right? Like, maybe if you know what, to be fair, man, like, maybe you a coach, right? Like, you trying to run some clinic or teach something to the kids or something like that. Maybe that's the opportunity by which you was watching Tim Duncan play. You weren't tuning in to watch no damn Tim Duncan game. You ain't got a lot of me. You wasn't doing that. You weren't. There's like really 3, maybe 4 players in the NBA that people really are like, oh, I came to see that guy. They came to see LeBron. They came to see Durant. They came to see Steph Curry. I mean, maybe we could say Russell Westbrook, though, James Harden on that list. But otherwise, man, ain't nobody tuning in to watch nobody else. They just NBA players. So, hey, they redid the whole schedule to make sure those players play, which is good because in the end, everybody else gets rest. What do we get? Better basketball. And I am here for better basketball. Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE network.
Daddy, where do babies come from?
Honey?
Mommy went to the store.
Oh, well, you see, there's a mommy and a daddy, right?
Right.
And see, when they call Geico, they could save a bunch of money on car insurance.
Oh, really? And that makes them happy?
Yes, that makes them very happy.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we could have this talk, Sunshine.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Our guest joined us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, just like our next guest. Check him out on the Morning Roast, Sundays 9 to 12 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Also check him out at theundefeated.com, where he does them good all 22s. His name is Dominique Foxworth. Dominique, I'm going to start with you. What did you think when you saw that Zeke Elliott got this 6-game suspension?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that I was shocked, but I really wasn't shocked because you can't be shocked because you never know quite what to expect out of the league. So Ezekiel Elliott is obviously someone who has, at least recently, seems to have a history of making poor decisions. So he's not someone that I'm necessarily wanting to defend, but I will say that you need some sort of consistency when you're dishing out punishments. And you need some buy-in from the players and the Players Association, which is not something that the commissioner has. So while I think a lot of people right now are happy to see, and I have to say I am too happy to see that the NFL is on the side of the victim it seems for once, but we're all happy to see this until it goes the other way, which is what we're more accustomed to seeing, is the commissioner having all this power and making mistakes in the decisions and the fines and the penalties that he levies.
Well, I think the question there is when we see this is, okay, why is now the time that they've decided to be on the side of the victim when it seems pretty clear that they had not been previously? Like I always say about the credibility of the NFL, credibility is like insurance. You don't need insurance till you get in a wreck.
Exactly. I mean, I think this is I think you hit the nail on the head, and they are certainly not ones that we would think of as being very credible when it comes to this. And I'm sure a lot of fan bases remember when the problem is, or part of the problem is, the fan bases remember when they are on the wrong side of this, and then rather than stand up when they see it go wrong again, they just celebrate. Ha ha! Now you're getting it, and that's not the right way, I think, to react when something like this happens. So again, Zeke is not someone that any of us wants to defend, but you're either on the side of doing the process right all the time, or on the side of just kind of knee-jerk reacting to any the latest transgression. And I try my best not to let my emotions get involved. And the league lets their emotions get involved, unfortunately. So it kind of feels that Ezekiel Elliott is picking up some of the punishment for all the mistakes that Goodell has made in the past with levying penalties.
All right, talking to Dominique Foxworth of ESPN Radio and the Undefeated here on The Right Time. Now, you were working with the Players Association when this CBA was done, and I've always wondered, how in the world was it allowed that Roger Goodell got to be the guy to hear the appeal?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's certainly not my proudest moment, but I think that we talked before about the piece that I wrote about decertification of the union, because there really is a severe power asymmetry, and it's not much the players can do. If you ask the players to go on strike for something like this, it's unrealistic to ask all the players to go on strike when no player, until they are caught up in this situation, no player ever thinks they're going to end up on the wrong side of it. And I think Tom Brady is a perfect example. I can guarantee you during the last CBA negotiations, Tom Brady never thought he was going to end up on the wrong side of commissioner discipline. But no one thinks they're going to end up on the wrong side of it until they are. And another difficult thing is, this is core in the NFL's mind. This is core to their revenue-generating strategy, and they need to be able to punish guys so it doesn't appear that they are coddling criminals, frankly, because if it appears that way, then those billions of dollars in sponsorships go away. So I don't know if we went on strike for 10 years. I'm not sure that the league would ever give way to that particular demand, because they feel like if they lose that, then they lose access to billions of dollars.
Well, also, we're talking Dominique Foxworth at the Undefeated. I guess the thing that's tricky for me about this is they can still have power, just a neutral arbitrator, one would think, right? Like the three-person body like you have, in the other sports and within the NFL on some measures.
No, I would agree with you, and that'd be fine, but then they would lose complete power. So I don't think in their mind public opinion matters, and whether a player gets back on the field too soon because of an appeal, or a player gets back on the field too soon because they made a poor decision, it doesn't matter. If the perception to them, or the perception to potential sponsors, is that there are a lot of criminals in the NFL, then that lowers their value to those sponsors. So I don't think they care whether it's fair or not fair, and I don't think they care whether the player gets back on the field because of appeal or not. They want it to be very clear to Coca-Cola and Pepsi and Under Armour and anybody else who wants to associate with them. They want it to be very clear that this is a league that is clean and pure. And, I mean, the irony in that is very, very palpable, thinking of their history with concussions.
We are talking to Dominique Foxworth of the Undefeated here on The Right Time. I want to switch gears to your All-22. You telling people how to dominate over Brad, man. Who's Brad?
I don't know. I needed a nice random name that everyone could imagine somebody that deserves to be dominated. So I picked Brad. Everyone's coming to me asking, like, was I bullied by some dude named Brad? A, I've never been bullied. And B, I certainly wouldn't let no dude named Brad do it. But I figured, like, when you are in the office or the barbershop is where I have this occurrence mostly, and there's somebody in there who's talking about football, regurgitating all the stuff they heard on TV but don't actually know what they're talking about, it's really annoying. So I'm giving people some little tidbits, some deep insights, so when they get in those situations, they can really dominate and know what they're talking about.
You realize you're creating more Brads by doing this.
I know that, but I'm creating informed Brads. This is better than aggressively ignorant Brad. That's a problem. When I'm in a barbershop, I've never told anybody. I had to switch barbershops because they once found out that I used to play in the NFL and I worked on ESPN, but I had to switch barbershops. When I'm in there, it is just so painful listening to people yell and scream so aggressively like they know what they're talking about, and they have no clue. So I'm doing my part to inform the public. If they want to use it in a condescending manner, that's on them. But at least they won't be sounding dumb.
I was in a very similar situation. That's why I stopped going to the barbershop.
Yeah, but I mean, you're like real legit famous now. I don't know. You have to have the barber come to you at this point, right?
Well, I mean, I don't really have to go to the barber anymore, but that was like part of it. Like when I moved to Miami, I was like, look, I'm not going through this in a new barbershop, right? Like I used to go to the old barbershop at 8 o'clock in the morning, trying to get in and out as quickly as possible to avoid those very moments of discussion.
Yeah, I agree with you, but once they figured it out, then they wanted to ask me, and they wanted me to co-sign on their foolishness, and then it's like if they at least started at a place of reasonable understanding, I could join in the conversation, but I had to spend 3 hours there getting them to a reasonable baseline before I can even explain to them what's actually happening. So now I have a link to send to them when they start getting on my nerves.
Well, what's the most annoying thing you hear people say where you're just like, oh, God, you don't know what's going on here?
Nah, I think one of the things that bothers me most is how so many offensive coordinators are so flawed, and rather than anyone spend the time understanding what's happening, they just say the quarterback sucks or this player's terrible. And I think there's a lot of coordinators who aren't giving guys a chance because they aren't scheming up the defenses in a way that's very helpful. They're just lazy. They're like, this is what works for me. This is what we're going to run. And, I mean, one of the dirty secrets is some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL are not reading through their progression during the play. They're doing motions and shifts to figure out what the defense is doing, and they know where they're throwing the ball before they throw the ball. And I see so often that people or offensive coordinators are asking young quarterbacks to actually read during the play and not set them up for success, and it bothers me because the reflex is quarterback sucks.
I got one quarterback I can immediately think of that I know doesn't read nothing. First guy he's looking at every single time he's throwing the ball to, but they get mad at me when I say that, so I ain't even going to bring up his name. You know who I'm talking about, though.
I do know who you're talking about, but...
And am I right, by the way? Am I right?
Whether you're right or wrong doesn't necessarily matter because I think Peyton Manning is a quarterback that rarely in the course of an actual play was he reading. He would motion and shift and figure out what you were in, and then he would know where he's throwing the ball. He would look off and then throw it where it was supposed to go. So I think reading through your progressions during a play is just, as a matter of skill, is overrated. It's much more important to be able to manipulate and read pre-snap than it is during the play because no one can consistently read an entire defense in less than a second every single play down the field, not even Tom Brady.
For what it's worth, that's part of why Peyton Manning wasn't so great in the postseason. The okey-doke was in full effect. You know, dude. I mean, this is the thing about Peyton Manning. We're talking to Dominique Foxworth of ESPN Radio here on the right time. The thing with him is we knew this. They were running the same small handful of plays, right? They just ran them so well that nobody could do anything. Then in the playoffs, people started doing something a little bit different. He's like, oh, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be there.
That's fair, but I think that he was part of, in the same way that we look at quarterbacks who are athletic and say that their development is hindered by the fact that they are leaning on their athleticism. I think the same is partially true for Peyton Manning is because he became the offensive coordinator. And so once for many teams, when he became the offensive coordinator and then he got into the playoffs and was facing real legitimate defensive coordinators who were putting a lot more time and effort into preparing for him, I think he was a little short-handed because then he was like, well, we just going to run the same thing we've been running. I mean, I can't criticize Peyton too much because they did beat us when I was in the playoffs.
You are right, though. That is the one thing that you're not supposed to be the coach. If coaching and playing were that easy, they still have all the quarterbacks calling their plays.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there should be a healthy collaboration between the coaches and the quarterbacks. But, I mean, you read so often about coaches who spending the night in their offices and working up all these complicated schemes. Peyton was trying to do that and also throw the football, which is asking a bit much.
I would agree there. That's Dominique Foxworth. Check him out on theundefeated.com. Also, the Morning Roast, 9 to 12 Eastern on ESPN Radio with Clinton Yates and Mina Kimes. My man, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Always. Thank you.
All right, now, ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Last year, over 3 million drivers switched to Progressive. Call or click today and find out if you can save.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
So a lot of people have been talking about the Patriots in the context of going 16-0. People see this as a Patriots team that could wind up going undefeated. Right. Now, of course, that's a lot to ask out of any team, but Tom Brady did an appearance on his favorite radio show on WEEI. Yeah, so anyway, here is Tom Brady talking about what it is, what he thinks about when he hears about these 16-0 sorts of comparisons.
For this team, I mean, we need to be focused on so many other things than what people may think about us. There's so much improvement we need to make. You know, I love the guys that I'm playing with this year. There's a totally different version of a team that we've had. We'll have our own strengths and weaknesses, but, you know, how the season plays out will be determined by what happens moving forward. And you're talking about some magical years that we've had that may never be duplicated again. So it's really unfair to compare any of that to what's happened in the past.
All right, man. Here we go. He's right. He is absolutely right. This idea that this team, that you look at it and say to yourself, this is a team that is going to go 16-0. I think that you're asking for a lot here of this team or basically any other team. Now, I have dismissed this, but you know what I didn't fully realize until now? They went 14-2 last year. One of those losses with Jacoby Brissett basically playing with one arm. I get why you would go there. But no, 16-0 is too much to ask of any team. Now, my thing about the Patriots is I did not think that they were a great team last year. I thought they were a team with a very good record and, by the way, a team that gets a kind of sort of advantage baked in from, playing in the AFC East, which is basically like writing down 6 wins, although last year they only got to write down 5 of them. I don't see this and just think, oh, my God, this is such a great team. I think they are a very good offensive team. I don't think of them really as being a great offensive team. I think of them as a very good defensive team. I don't really think of them as a great defensive team. Like, I don't see greatness. And when we're talking about 16-0 off the jump, I feel like we should probably be talking about greatness. Also, do you believe that they're going to go through all next season with a passing game that throws 2 interceptions? Did you realize that? As a staff label, as a Fraggernackle crew, the Patriots threw 2 interceptions last year. Like, I was looking at this to make sure it wasn't ranks. Yes, 2 interceptions last year. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. By the way, speaking of impressive, ESPN Fantasy Football Marathon is currently going on, so make sure you, sign up and play on ESPN.com or in the ESPN Fantasy app. Play in a private league with friends or join a public league and be matched with other ESPN fans. Play in up to 25 leagues, completely free. Fantasy Football Marathon, presented by DraftKings. Hey, man, you got to do that sometimes. Anyway, no, I just don't see undefeated here necessarily. Now, I do think, like, adding Brandon Cooks helps, certainly. And I think he helps because your go-to receiver was Gronk, right? Like, granted, they did well with Gronk not being in there, but your go-to threaten you receiver was Gronk. Brandon Cooks, okay, that makes things a little bit better. It does. Like, I do think it makes things a better move for them. Okay, you'd like to have that. We're still going a long way asking for 16-0. Now, if you'd excuse me, I think I'm about to embarrass somebody. 888-729-3776. Talk to Garrett in North Carolina. Garrett, sup?
Hey, Bo. Listen, man, I love you, man. I love the show. But I remember having this conversation with you last year, and it's always a little bit
Hold on. You had this conversation with me about them going 16-0?
No. Just about them winning the Super Bowl last year.
Okay.
And
I didn't think they were going to. I didn't think they were going to win the Super Bowl. Now I'm saying right. I don't think they'll go 16-0. That's not a bold statement.
And listen, no, and that's a valid point. I mean, you still need a lot of things to happen.
Then why are you about to waste my time?
Well, because I'm telling you that they can if they stay healthy. If they stay healthy, they can definitely
do you realize what an if that is in the NFL? If you can stay healthy while your dudes are getting hit in the head.
It's a big if. I understand that.
If if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk, Garrett. Why are you wasting my time?
The point was that the Patriots, you didn't think they got that good of a team. They are that good of a team, Bo. It's just that they don't have a headliner. They don't, outside of Tom Brady and Gronkowski, who's always hurt, right? They don't have that superstar that you can sit there and say, oh, this is a great team. But they are, because they're fundamentally sound. They do everything right when they're on the field.
Fundamentally sound. You talking about the receivers?
They're like the San Antonio Spurs of the NFL, man.
You talking about the fundamentally sound receivers?
I'm talking about those fundamentally sound receivers that always get open. I'm talking about that fundamentally sound receiver named Hogan that had over 20 yards receiving. I'm talking about that Julian Edelman, who people keep saying he's only 5'5", but he continues to make big plays. That's what I'm talking about, Bo. Them players that you keep underestimating, and they keep showing up.
Thank you for having the temerity to stand up for the Patriots. I don't know what you want from me here. I don't know what you want. Like, the Patriots look, I've been here for the last 16, 17 years. It's not a question of how good the Patriots are. It's a question of today. Do you think they will go 16-0? They ain't made an NFL team yet that I'm betting on off the rip going 16-0. Not one. I don't think that's absurd. I just don't, right? Okay. 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. Let's go ahead and throw Greg in St. Louis on, though. Greg, thanks for calling the right time.
Oh, okay. Number one, that last caller, are you insane? This is football. It's a contact sport. You cannot, if everyone stays healthy. The other reason for the call was there was an article on The Undefeated that was written by Stephen A. Smith, and I just have one question, and I'm going to get off the line, and hopefully you can answer it for me. In football, it's all about the team buying in and believing that the organization is doing everything it can to put them in the best possible position to win. There is no way in hell you're going to tell me that these teams with these quarterback battles all have a better option than Colin Kaepernick. And with that, I'm going to get off the line. Love the show. Thank you so much. Appreciate your insight.
I appreciate it, man. I didn't read that Stephen A. column, so I can't really say anything about that. I would also say, though, that, yes, your point is correct there about Kaepernick. I'm kind of done with that particular fight, though. And when I say I'm done with that fight, I mean there's nothing left for me to say about this. Kaepernick is better than dudes that have jobs. What we have going on as it relates to him is not a football issue. Like, I don't think any of those things at this point are really disputable. And given that I don't think any of those things at this point are disputable, I don't know, like, what it is that's going to come of it from me arguing the point. You know how I feel about it. In fact, I feel like you know what it is that's going on here. The league has made their call. There's really nothing I can do in that regard. So it's not as though, like, now I don't care about the issue as it relates to Kaepernick. I just look at it like, yeah, okay, all these teams, every time a team signs a quarterback and the quarterback isn't as good as Kaepernick, I could absolutely be like, yeah, but what about Colin Kaepernick? But y'all know that already. The people who are there have made the decision. They don't really care about that. They don't care about it at all. And I honestly find myself left in a place where I'm confused as to how exactly I should handle it. And where I say I'm confused as to how I should handle it is I don't know if there's anything productive for me to say about it at this point. These jokers going to do what they do. Now, what I would like is for people to just be honest about what the situation is turned into. Like, that would be my request, is that others be real about what it is that is going on. But, yeah, you're right. You're not going to be able to tell me that all these scrubs are getting jobs and that Kaepernick isn't good enough to get one of those jobs. We're just at a point now where one thing you're going to learn about people who make decisions like the one that's being made about Kaepernick, after you catch them in the lie, it's not like they say, okay, you got me. Once you catch them in the lie, you know what they do? They realize they probably didn't have to tell the lie in the first place. And they just keep it moving. Sad but true.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, just like our next guest covers the NFL for us here at ESPN. His name is Jim Trotter. Now, Jim, I talked to you a couple weeks ago after you had spoken with Jerry Jones, and he felt there was no evidence against Ezekiel Elliott. So what were your thoughts when you saw the 6-game suspension came down?
I was surprised at the length of it, to be honest with you. One, because the NFL has been so inconsistent in how it's meted out punishment under its domestic violence policy. You know, my thing is that if Josh Brown could get one game, then for Zeke to get 6, it just seemed a little inconsistent. But I'll say this to you, Bomani. We've heard one side in this story, and that's the league side. And I will say to you that if everything the league alleges in the letter that it sent out to Ezekiel Elliott is true, referring to the 3 different occasions of domestic violence, then to me, the league didn't go far enough. If all of those things are true, he should have been suspended for the year. I believe the league should have a zero tolerance on domestic violence as well as drinking and driving. And the reality is, under its domestic violence policy, it says that the 6 games is the baseline in terms of punishment, and it can be lessened or increased depending on mitigating circumstances. And if everything in that letter is true in terms of what Ezekiel Elliott did or is alleged to have done, then to me it should have been more than 6 games.
Well, does the 6 games mean anything at this point? Because this is the first time I think we've had the 6 games.
I'm not sure if it's the first. We've gone back and forth with this internally about whether or not it is or it isn't. But I'll say this to you. No, it doesn't mean anything at this point. I know some people are trying to say this is a watershed moment potentially, that this is now going to be the new framework for the league going forward and all these kinds of things. Look, the reality is here, we're probably headed back to court just like we were on some of these other cases. So I'm not sure what's going on here. And again, when we hear from Zeke's side,
now that could change the narrative even more in terms of what they're going to allege about the evidence as presented by the league. So, again, I make this case. If everything that the league alleges is true in that letter, then it should have been a lot more than 6 games.
All right, we're talking to Jim Trotter of ESPN here on The Right Time. Now, we talked to Dominique Foxworth a little earlier, who was working with the Players Association when they negotiated the CBA that not only gave Goodell the power to give discipline, but also allowed Goodell to oversee the appeals.
Correct.
Is there any chance
Correct.
that the players in any negotiation could ever get that back?
Absolutely, and I can tell you this, that there was discussion, I believe it was a couple of years ago, between the union and the league, and the union actually thought that Goodell was giving in on the appeal hearing of being judge, jury, and executioner, and the union thought it had an agreement with Goodell, and then all of a sudden it changed when Goodell got back to New York. There had been a conversation between Goodell and DeMaurice Smith about this. They had been talking for some time. And what I believe, and this is just a supposition on my part, what happened is when Goodell got back and he presented that to the attorneys there, they said, why would we give this away for free? This is something we can get something out of this in collective bargaining, and therefore it didn't go forward. And I believe that once we get to the new collective collective bargaining negotiations, that's one of the things that the league will be willing to give up, is having Goodell as the final arbiter in terms of these cases.
Now, if you're the league, why would you be willing to give it up? Is it just the bad PR that comes when these things go wrong?
Absolutely. Absolutely. How many times have we seen Goodell get beaten up over making decisions that none of us could wrap our heads around? And so for some owners I know that I've talked to, they said, why do we want to continue with that? Why not let an independent arbiter, who has some sort of ties to the NFL, why not let that person make the decision? And then in some ways it gives the commissioner some breathing room. But there's a lot of hubris when it comes to Roger Goodell, as you know, and he likes being viewed as the enforcer. That's why he stood under that Time magazine, headline where it called him the enforcer. He likes that. But there are owners in the league who believe it's not in the league's best interest necessarily to have him as that guy, the final arbiter in these cases.
We're talking to Jim Trotter of ESPN here on The Right Time. Now, is there any danger for Goodell in running afoul of Jerry Jones?
No, I don't think so. Because look at this. He took on Robert Kraft, and behind the scenes there were a number of owners who wanted him to discipline the Patriots. And now he's got Jerry Jones, and I can tell you for a fact that there are a number of owners who want the Cowboys to be disciplined in this. Roger Goodell is nothing if not a political creature who understands the landscape in terms of his owners. And therefore, in my mind, he would not be proceeding in this way if he did not feel he had the backing of the owner. So no, I don't think he's in any danger. Is he going to make Jerry upset? Of course he is. Jerry was upset also when he got the fine for violating the non-salary cap, if you will, agreement or instructions during the uncapped year. So no, Jerry won't be happy, but I don't think it's going to impact Roger at all.
All right, talking to Jim Trotter of ESPN here on The Right Time. Switching gears, saw you tweeting about this, that there are some players who would like to hear from Colin Kaepernick, players who have been supportive of his cause. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it really comes down to this, Bomani, because I had been kind of beating the drums that why aren't more players standing up for Colin Kaepernick right now? And when I started asking players who have been supportive publicly of Colin, I was a little surprised, but they said to me, how do you stand up for a guy who's not standing up for himself? There's only so much we can do, because as it is now, if they keep continuing to speak out, it appears that they care more about Colin's future than Colin does. And so they were saying, we would like to hear from Colin. We would like to hear him say what his objective is going forward. We know the reason behind the protest, and we support him on that. But now when it comes to him not being signed, what's the best strategy going forward? What's his end game? What's the objective? And they have not heard that from him. And the one thing they've done when some of them have spoken to him and they've asked him about it is he has thanked them for their support, but he is not giving them any direction in terms of what they could do to help him or what he plans to do. So they have said to me that they would like to hear from him publicly, and they are willing to stand alongside of him, but he just has not been willing to do that at this point.
Now, were you surprised to see how outspoken Michael Bennett? I mean, I guess there's no surprise in seeing Michael Bennett be outspoken on this, but I guess it was interesting that now was the time that he chose to approach this way.
I wasn't surprised at all, Bomani, to be serious. If you look at this offseason with Michael Bennett, he's been more and more vocal about things that have been going on. And Michael and his brother Martellus are two of the more socially conscious players in the NFL. I mean, they do speak out on issues, and they have these great personalities, and sometimes people, get caught up in that as opposed to seeing just how serious they are about some of these issues. And so if you have followed Michael this offseason, you have seen different points where he has spoken out on certain things. So to take this step, it didn't surprise me at all. It surprised me a little bit that he didn't consult with anyone. He didn't talk with any teammates about it. He did it on his own. And in fact, after the game, Pete Carroll was surprised by it. The front office was surprised, and even his teammates. But they also supported him on it because they know how serious he is about it. And, I respect him for that. I respect any player who stands up and speaks out on these issues. And when I asked Michael if he's going to continue to do this, to sit during the season, he said yes. So no, I wasn't surprised that he did it. And I think we're going to see more players once the season gets here make some sort of statement. Now, I'm not saying they're going to sit, but it could be anything. Whether it's a raised fist again, whether or not it's messages they might put on cleats, whatever. I do think we're going to hear from players during the season.
Now, do you think anybody will be able to get Marshawn Lynch to talk about this?
I think you know the answer to that. No. It would be something, but no, I don't think we're going to get him to speak on it. And that's what was so fascinating to me about Marshawn's situation, because Jack Del Rio, who was so critical of Colin last year in terms of taking a knee and everything else, now when one of his players does it, he says, well, Marshawn told me that it wasn't about anything political, that he had been doing this for 11 years. And then you see the video and the pictures that show otherwise, that there were times he sat, but there were other times he stood. But Jack was willing to accept him at his word on that instead of coming down hard on Marshawn. Now, is that just because Marshawn's a talented player who can help Jack get to where he wants to get to, or was it also because the owner has once described Tommy Smith as one of his heroes and even invited Tommy Smith to light the Al Davis torch for the Raiders game down in Mexico City where Tommy Smith raised his fist? So it's interesting to me how people change their opinions or something depending on the situation that they're in.
All right, that's Jim Trotter. Check him out, covering the NFL for us here at ESPN. Thanks so much, my man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me.
All right, now ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Pick from a range of coverage options with the Name Your Price tool to find a price that works for you.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
All right, so Michael Bennett and Marshawn Lynch didn't stand for the national anthem over the course of the weekend. That now makes it a topic that's going to come up with more guys on more teams, right? Like, it's a thing now. Like, I don't think this would have necessarily come up before, but, I mean, maybe it's the events of the weekend that are going to spur this a little bit more, but now we're at a point where all these guys and all these teams are going to be asked about whether or not this is something that they are going to do. Now, in Oakland, it's interesting because Marshawn Lynch did not stand, and we just had Jim Trotter on of ESPN a couple segments ago. And he was like, look, man, Jack Del Rio was not here for the Kaepernick kneeling last year. But now Marshawn Lynch is on his team, and he said that Marshawn Lynch told him this is something I've been doing for 11 years. And then we find pictures of Marshawn Lynch not doing it. And now Jack Del Rio is kind of like, I don't know what there is for me to do. I don't know what there is for me to do. Hey, I think I'll just ride along with this, right? That's what I think. And so here's the thing with the NFL, at least as it's going to relate to whether or not another player decides that he is going to kneel. It is best for the NFL to act like everything's all good when that happens. Because when the NFL acts like everything's all good, it doesn't become a thing, or it's far less likely for it to become a thing. Like, the difference between Kaepernick and all these other dudes is the other dudes waited for permission. Right? Now, you can make the argument that Kaepernick did not need permission, and that's fine. But the difference between Kaepernick and, say, Eric Reed, Arian Foster, I guess he doesn't play in the league anymore, but we could go around the league, Brandon Marshall of the Broncos. The difference between those guys and Kaepernick is those guys basically waited for permission because the league was like, yeah, we can't stop you from doing it. Like, it sounds like it went to legal, and all those cats looked around and tried to figure out what it was that they could pull off, and they're like, yo, nothing we can do to stop them. Okay, go ahead and do that. Now, here is what Roger Goodell had to say about it.
The national anthem is a special moment to me. It's a point of pride, and that is a really important moment. And I think, but we also have to understand the other side, that people do have rights, and we want to respect those. I was with the Jets a few weeks ago, and one of the players was there, and they said, there's a time and a place. That's what we all have to sort of understand, the responsibility of doing it the right time and in the right way. And what we see is a lot of our players going in the community and really taking the platform they have and being active and creating dialogue and actually making really positive change. And that's what I think is so important. Protest to progress is what I call it. And we all have to recognize that people want to see change. Let's go out and try to make that change happen in a peaceful and an important way. And we've seen our players lead that. We saw it in Denver with Brandon Marshall. We saw it with Doug Baldwin in Seattle. They went out and did some really great things in the community to affect change in a positive way. And that's what we want to see our players do. And I think it's a positive thing.
See, look at Raj doing something smart. Now, this is why this is Raj doing something smart. I remember I read a biography of Bob Marley called Catch a Fire by Timothy White. You Eminem fans will remember his name. Anyway, Bob Marley has received the Order of Merit. I think it's the third or fourth highest honor the Jamaican government can bestow upon you. That's why you will often see Bob Marley referred to as the Honorable Robert Nesta Marley, O.M., the Order of Merit. What they found later in going through the paperwork is that the plan of the Jamaican government was to ride along with this, and their idea was, if we do this, then it then makes Marley appear to be a friend of the government, which then dulls the revolutionary edge of what it is that he is doing, right? Very interesting play to make. We see this happen often with, like, when guys wind up on stamps, for example, that when this is done, it dulls the revolutionary edge of what has been done. That is what the league's play needs to be on the national anthem. It's not even so much we encourage guys to do this, but if they do this, then you need to be like, yeah, well, we're on board with that. They're talking about peaceful protest to progress. Yeah, that's what it is that we're looking for. That's what Roger Goodell is doing there. That's the smart play. That's the way that you do it. Because, again, the other cats that came after Kaepernick, there wasn't really any noise around them because they were doing it basically with the blessing of the league and of their teams. Now, we got two interesting situations here. One, Jason Garrett, the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, he made the whole point about how the national anthem is sacred to me and all this stuff like this, and none of our guys are going to do this. He basically strong-arming them on what they're going to do. Now, our man Jacques Taylor's come on the show, always made the point that Jason Garrett got a bunch of dudes on that team who basically do whatever he says. That's what the plan is for them. That's what they've got, right? And so Jason Garrett is comporting himself like a man who knows, or at least feels like, he can get out here and say that, and his guys are going to fall in line. Now, here's one for you from Hugh Jackson, and this might surprise you a little bit.
I think everybody has a right to do, and I get it, but the national anthem means a lot to myself personally, an organization, or football team. I hope, again, I can't speak. I haven't really talked to our team about it. I would hope we don't have those issues. I understand there's a lot going on in the world. I like to just keep it here. What we deal with, we try to deal with as a team in our closed environment. We talk about things, but hopefully that won't happen.
By the way, Hugh is short for Huey. In terms of you're looking for, like, ironic situations that come up. Now, I talk to people that know a little bit more, and that's Hugh Jackson. Like, I think a lot of people look at that as like, oh, man, you don't want the money to mess with him. Nah. That appears to be the way that Hugh Jackson himself feels. And I'm just like, look, man, y'all are all playing this badly. Every single one of you that is doing it like this is playing this badly. Say, hey, these guys have their right to do whatever. And then once that happens, man, I'm telling you, y'all aren't going to have any problems if you play it like that. But once you play it as I don't want these dudes to do this, then all the people going to start fighting the fight for them once you make that play. No. Go out there and say, hey, man, you got the right to do whatever it is that you want to do. And then they'll go ahead and do it. They'll be on camera for a little bit as it goes. But look, Colin taking all the bullets for everybody. I think we'd all agree upon that, right? Colin is taking the bullets for everyone. Like, I don't think there's anyone else that's going to wind up himself being singled out in this situation. Now, maybe it's a thing for these guys, like for Jackson and for Jason Garrett, where they see where the tide is going, and as a result, maybe they just want to make sure that they don't have any more problems than they absolutely have to. I totally can see how that would be the thing. But lording over cats is never going to be the thing that works. It never will. Not in a time like this, because I'm telling you, man, that frustration is riding high with a whole lot of people. And with that happening, the last thing they're trying to do is let this football coach be the one to tell them what to do. Right. You're not going to win by suppressing this, especially when everybody involved knows, hey, man, y'all don't really have the standing. All right, like you can go ahead and cut somebody if you want. So like a guy at the end of the bench, you might be able to keep them in line, but nobody cares about the dudes at the end of the bench anyway. It's the dude whose names you know that you got to worry about kneeling or not standing or whatever it winds up being. Guys at the end of the bench, no, they ain't doing nothing, man. No contracts ain't guaranteed. They backs is all the way straight. All the way. At least they going to be. But you're going to mess around and defend some dude that matters to your football team. And that dude's going to do it. And you ain't cutting them all. Right? Even Kaepernick last year, they didn't cut him. Now, granted, there was the injury stuff and everything else, and they couldn't exactly do that, and he was the best quarterback that happened to be on the roster, right? But no. There's going to be some cats you can't release that decides to do this if your play is to try to tell grown men what to do. Because at some point, you wind up getting a measure of resistance from that. And once that happens, man, really, good luck to you. Try to pull that off. I'm just telling you, as a league, strategically, you want to make this go away? Let these dudes do it. What you're going to wind up with in all likelihood is what happened last year. You're going to have a couple of dudes do this for a week or two. And then after that week or two passes, they're going to move on to something else. Now, who knows? Maybe the world going to keep on being crazy like the world been crazy, and they're going to keep doing it. At which point, them dudes not standing up is going to wind up being the least of your concerns. Right. Let these dudes exercise their rights. They'll exercise their rights. Everybody will keep it moving. Try to stand in their way. Becomes a matter of pride. You're going to have a fight that even if you win, you will ultimately lose. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Coming up next, we're getting some more reporting out of what's going on with Cleveland and the Cavs and Kyrie and LeBron. You think they'll be on the same team in October? You're listening to ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Chris Herring of 538.com will join us next segment. Chris Herring will join us at 6:30 Eastern. That's the old soul song of the day, Maybe Your Baby by Stevie Wonder. By the way, Stevie, when you go through the catalog, like this song getting so much about Stevie Dirty Mackin', but his catalog is very, very heavy in the, you're not supposed to be doing that segment of stuff. It's almost like Stevie can see the game in a way y'all don't give him credit for. See all the angles. I mean, in Part-Time Lover, man, the dude was talking about flashing the light on and off so that you know that, you home or not. I'm just saying, Stevie, what good that do you? 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. We talked a little bit here. Oh, by the way, I forgot. ESPN Fantasy Football Marathon is currently going on, so make sure you sign up and play on ESPN.com or in the ESPN Fantasy app. Play in a private league with friends. Join a public league. Be matched with other ESPN fans. You play up into 25 leagues, baby, completely free. Fantasy Football Marathon brought to you by DraftKings. Yeah. All right, 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. Some of these dudes in the national anthem, the possibility of people not standing. Like, you realize this. Think about it. Every time a coach says, I'm good with my guys not standing for the national anthem, it is a non-story. Say you going to make a fuss about your guys standing for the national anthem. Story. It's almost as if, by the way, by saying this, the coaches wind up being distractions. Right? Is that not the case? Like, isn't it interesting that the whole idea is that, we don't want any distraction? If you a coach and you don't want a distraction, say you're not tripping on this. Or I suppose the way to put it is, you don't want to be distracted, don't be distracted. I understand it's very simple, but, focus. All right, 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. So we got Kyrie, we got LeBron. What is going to happen here? Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN reported today that the Cavs are looking at this and trying to get back a franchise player. They want a young player, they want a franchise player, but that's what they want. They want a franchise player, and it is, again, rare that a player as good as Kyrie Irving gets traded but is not the best player in that trade. And the only way that the Cavs can get a franchise player back in that trade is if they get a player better than Kyrie Irving. As the way I see it, Kyrie Irving is not a franchise player. Now, here is Brian Windhurst of ESPN. He was on SportsCenter with David Lloyd, and here's what he said about what's difficult about making the Kyrie trade happen.
What the Cavs have been trying to do here is figure out a way to thread the needle about how they could trade Kyrie Irving get maximum value, protect themselves in the short run, and protect themselves in the long run. That's an awfully darn hard thing to pull off with the youngest general manager in the league and an owner behind him who is willing to spend but is also temperamental.
Yeah, hold on. Play that one more time for me, please.
What the Cavs have been trying to do here is figure out a way to thread the needle about how they could trade Kyrie Irving, get maximum value, protect themselves in the short run, and protect themselves in the long run. That's an awfully darn hard thing to pull off with the youngest general manager in the league and an owner behind him who is willing to spend but is also temperamental.
All right, now I would say that while that sounds ambitious, at this point in the process, this is how the Cavs should play it. There's no reason right now for them not to be ambitious. Now, certainly I would say that if I were running the Cavs, I want to make sure that Kyrie's not on the roster on opening night. But you don't really have to do that if you don't want to. I think it would be best to get him out of there before opening night, but you don't have to pull that off before opening night. They should try to get everything. They should. They are not going to get everything, but they should, in fact, try to get everything. Now, one of the questions in this for me is, how far are they willing to go to get Kyrie out of there? And by saying how far are they willing to go, it is, are you willing to make a trade with anybody at all? And why would I say anybody at all? Well, a team that has a lot of the assets that one would think the Cavaliers need in order to make it happen would be the Celtics, because the Celtics have all of the assets. Now, here's Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN talking about the Cavs' willingness to trade with the Celtics.
Boston is an intriguing target for Cleveland. They are not afraid to do a deal with the Celtics, even though they're conference rivals, and they'll be competing with them for the Eastern Championship this year, because Boston has overwhelmingly the best possible package of picks, of players, especially young ones. And as I reported in the piece, Jason Tatum, who the Celtics drafted out of Duke this year, is a player that really intrigues Cleveland, but right now there's been no real discussion between those two teams about Tatum.
I mean, so if you're the Celtics, number one, this idea of a Kyrie-Isaiah Thomas pairing, right? Why would you do that? Like, basically what you are saying is we're going to score all the points in the world, and it's going to be turnstiles for every guard on the other side. Like, I don't know how many teams are going to win games against the Celtics if they have that pairing, but every guard in the East has got to be like, oh, yeah, do that. Do that. You imagine John Wall and Brad Beal salivating at the idea they get to go up against Isaiah Thomas and Kyrie Irving? Like, can you imagine that? Just the thought? Like, bro, I go for 50, you go for 50. No, same game, bro. We both going for 50. We might not even pass the ball to none of these other cats, because why would we pass the ball to all these other cats? We open all game. All the game if that were to happen. The other part, and the game theory on it, man, I just can't see how it is that either side would be willing to do something that they feel like strengthens the other side. So with the Cavs, for example, if they want to set themselves up in a way where they're built for the long haul, look, the Celtics I don't care what anybody says, the Celtics aren't really playing it for what they need to do right now. If they were playing it for what they need to do right now, they would have moved those picks for like assets that were a little bit closer to maturity, right? Celtics are playing this for the long run. Why would you set the Cavs up for the long run? Or would you? Like, maybe you think that you can do something that decimates the Cavs in the short run and gives you a better chance at winning the East? Maybe. I don't know. But no. Why would you help build them up? No, I don't see that trade being the one that is going to happen. It certainly would be intriguing, but I don't see that as being the one that would happen. I just don't. The one good thing for Kyrie, though, if Kyrie went to the Celtics, he'd be like, wow, so I'm somewhere where they hate LeBron even more than I do. Ain't that something? Because, yeah, they're not. I don't feel like LeBron or like LeBron's teams, they've had like these rivalries kind of here and there, but the real is LeBron has had a Boston rivalry, right? It has been LeBron versus Boston. And look, Boston got the upper hand on LeBron quite a bit at first in this, right? They got him 2008 in the Eastern Conference semifinals. 2010, the worst LeBron series I think we've ever seen. The Celtics on the other side of that. Then LeBron got over him a couple times while he was there in Miami. Then LeBron got him this last time. Like, he is the rival of an entire city, which is kind of fascinating to consider. Like, I think all parties involved with, like, this idea of, yeah, we can go take on LeBron. The Cavs got to be like, no, chill out. I still believe, by the way, Cavs need to play everything for this upcoming season. And I think getting Kyrie out of there might wind up making them better off for this upcoming season, but play for the upcoming season. This idea that we need to be strengthened for what happens after LeBron leaves. Here's what happens after LeBron leaves. You're not a title contender. There's nothing that you could realistically pull off that'll make you a title contender after LeBron leaves. After he leaves, you're not a title contender. Y'all need to play for right now. Not later, not right now. Right now is what you got. It took you 50 damn years to win a championship. You better try to get this second while you can. Otherwise, ain't none of us going to be around to watch them get the next one. And if we are around, chewing your own food, you'll be reminiscing on it. That's a back in the day sort of situation for you.
Thanks for listening to the Right Time Podcast. Please come back tomorrow for more.